Hi, I'm Mark Hummel. I hope you're enjoying the Harmonica Party and the other content that we post on our channel. Now you can become part of the show for the price of a cheap cup of coffee. For $3 a month, you can help bring the blues and the stories to you. Check out our Patreon page and join us for exclusive content, early releases of episodes, and some rewards specifically for our Patreon friends. Thanks for helping us keep the blues alive. Hi, I'm Mark Hummel. Welcome to the Harmonica Party podcast, and I've got two special guests today, Rusty Zinn and Bob Welsh. These two have known each other and been playing together since the mid-90s, is that correct?
Early
90s,
yes.
Okay. And two great musicians. Rusty has played blues for many years now, as well as reggae. And Bob plays both piano and guitar now with the Elvin Bishop Big Fun Trio, and also Charlie Musselwhite recently, right? Again, yeah.
Together again.
Together.
And you're on a Grammy-nominated CD.
Yeah.
With those guys, yeah, which is a great CD.
It is a great one. And I think Rusty and I are both on another one too, a Kim Wilson one. You're on that one, aren't you?
Which one?
I don't know what it's. I think it's nominated for a Grammy too.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, okay,
sure
right.
Maybe one song.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, the one Big John, I think, put together. Right. I forget the title.
None of those other CDs I did with Kim were nominated for Grammys? Is this the first time?
That I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I shall research it, though. But anyway, I just want to talk to you guys about, since this is Mark Hummel's Harmonica Party podcast, I would like to get into the harmonica backing that you guys are able to do so well, probably in my book, better than just about anybody I can think of. The two guitar backing that you guys are able to do, or piano and guitar, however, you guys decide to slice it. You guys have a real knack for being able to play behind harmonica players and have worked with pretty much
Every single one. Every one of them.
Pretty much every one of them.
Young, old, alive, and dead.
Exactly. And many recordings with the both of you behind different people. And so what I'd like to do is I'm just going to throw some names at you, and you guys tell me what you recall about working with some of these people. One is obviously Kim Wilson, because you're playing with Kim at this point in the Fabulous Thunderbirds again.
Yeah. I met Kim through Rusty.
Through Rusty,
probably
right.
in the late '90s, and I remember Rusty was kind enough to get me to sit in and play on and I was like really stiff, And I think at some point Kim just looked back at me and kind of shook his head.
Where was that at? Where was that?
I don't even remember, but yeah, I've. And through you, I've got to back so many harmonica players,
Right on the harmonica blowouts.
And and then I took guitar lessons with Rusty when I first moved out here.
So
maybe about two or three, and then.
Oh, I think it was more than that.
What year did you move out here again?
I moved back out here in my early 20s. I don't remember when it was. It was more like I met Rusty in like 94, 95.
Okay.
Yeah, 90,
so then it was,
93,
so
94, somewhere around there. Yeah. So you would
back.
come from New Orleans just a few years before that, right? A couple of years. I remember you were living in a little one-room country shack. Man.
Yeah, I was. I was living on Orleans and Rampart in the French Quarter.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I remember when you lived out here, you literally lived in a blues shack.
Yeah.
That was incredible, man.
Palo Alto, that place.
It was incredible, man. I was like, man, this guy's really living the blues life, man. Bob took, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 lessons from me, and we hit it off instantly, and like I think like the third lesson, at the end he goes to pay me, and I go, you should keep your money, because he would come to the lesson showing me things, and then and it would usually turn out that I would just spend the lesson making you a cassette tape. That's back when you would
Right.
record
Yeah,
records
he
on
made
cassette.
He made all the different piano
turn you on to
players. He turned
people
me
and
on
stuff,
to,
yeah,
and, You made me a Jody Williams tape and everything.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you start playing piano sort of to play in Rusty's
Yeah,
band?
kind of.
I did. I was playing guitar and.
But you already played when you were a kid, right? Piano? You knew a
No,
little bit?
I just.
You knew a little bit?
Maybe I had a better feel on it, at the time for some reason. And Rusty's like, hey, if you learn how to play, you can go on tour with me.
Right.
So I learned, I
Right.
learned competently enough to play in the keys that he was doing,
I remember because we lived in this house it was in West Oakland, and Emeryville was literally across the street. That place was just like falling to pieces, man. It was like that the kitchen dining area had been an add-on decades ago, and it was literally like hanging off the back of the building. I mean, that place was bad news. But he would go down in the basement, and there was no light down there. He'd go down there with a candle, and it was a dirt floor and cobwebs and spiders everywhere, and there was a old out-of-tune upright piano, and I could hear Bob down there,
Wow.
learning how to play like Otis, teaching himself how to play like Otis Spann and stuff, and yeah.
Now, didn't you record your first album at that house?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I did,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's
And
right.
people,
Steve Lucky on piano.
yeah,
And Kim was on it, and
Kim was, yeah,
Ronnie James.
Ronnie
and
James, and Richard Innes,
Richard Innes,
and we
right.
had Rob Sudduth and John the
Right.
late John Furman on
right.
saxophones, and yeah, but that house, I don't know if we even knew we would get that good of a sound, but I don't think I ever made a record that sounded quite as sonically as good as that place.
That was a great
you know?
sounding room.
Yeah.
So you got the gig with Kim Wilson early on. You got it right out of my band.
91, 92,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. I had a real close relationship with Snooky Pryor, as you know,
Right.
and so I brought him in on some shows. Early on, I would just be the lone guitar player, but then I just thought, we've got to get Bob and get the two guitar sound. Who else did we back up?
Carrie Bell and Pine Top Perkins.
Yeah. He did. Bob and I did a lot of work with Pine Top together, and Pine Top loved your piano playing and guitar
So did
playing.
he
of
show
course.
you stuff, Pine Top Perkins?
Yeah, I sat down with him a couple of times for hours.
Yeah.
He would show me, how to play like his version of the 44 blues.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a real generous guy, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
And then Bob and I played together in Charlie Musselwhite's band briefly. You already had the gig, right? And I was subbing for Kurt.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
right.
Well, I actually played with Charlie before Bob and Randy and those guys got the gig. Stu Blank had quit,
Right.
and it was John Wiedemeyer's great guitar player and great friend. It was his last tour with Musselwhite, and Charlie wanted a fifth piece. So instead of getting a keyboard, he hired me. So I did a tour. And then and then me and Charlie did some duo gigs, which were terrific,
remember that,
man. It was
yeah.
just me and him. I would open playing solo, then he would come out without me and do solo, and then I'd come back out and we'd do a few songs, and Charlie would always say, the greatest thing about this gig, toes up by midnight. About a year later, Kirk Fletcher quit to join the T. He had got the Musselwhite gig after Wiedemeyer left.
Right.
And he quit to join the T-Birds, and Bob and Randy were already in the band, and then I played with them for about 4 months.
I thought Kid joined right after Kirk.
No.
He was after me.
I
It's
saw
all
those
around
two
that
guys.
time. It's like we were all back to back,
Right.
but I played with them for 4 months, and it was just that was a lot of fun. It's the first time I'd ever been to Italy.
Oh, yeah.
We went to Italy with
Right.
Musselwhite, and I'd been to all over Europe, and I'd never been to Italy, and it was like a dream come true to go there.
We got to go to Italy one time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, that was fun too, man.
Yeah. So Carrie, I think we did quite a few things with off and on, as I recall.
Yeah, we did.
Weren't you on? Yeah, you were on the one in 2002, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Wasn't that the one with Carrie and Freund and
Lazy
Cephas and
Lester,
Wiggins,
or-
Lazy
Yeah, I
Lester?
remember that tour. Played at
Yeah.
Moe's Alley. And,
Right, we have an album at Moe's Alley
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we did. Yeah,
Oh.
both of you guys play with James Cotton, as I recall. I know
yeah.
you did with
Yeah.
me, and then
Can I tell them about
Yeah,
the first time I
yeah.
played with James Cotton?
Sure, yeah.
It was in '92, and when I first kind of started to play with Kim, and Kim flew me down to Austin to do a Friday and Saturday night at Antone's, and then I was supposed to fly home on a Sunday. Cotton was coming. Him and Jack. He was living in Memphis at
Right.
the time, and him and his wife Jackie were driving in from Memphis. And Derek O'Brien was supposed to play, of course,
Right.
house guitar player, great guitar player. And he dropped a speaker on his hand or something, and he had to have stitches. He sliced his fingers open, and so they said, "Well, we're keeping you over. We're changing your plane flight, and you're going to back James Cotton." And I mean, this was like the most unbelievable experience because Cotton. I had seen him so many times from when I was a teenager,
Right.
and I'd seen him with Tucker and
you and Tucker, we should talk about that
yeah,
too.
yeah. Tucker was was my first kind of mentor and teacher,
Right.
and so I mean, getting to do this gig with Cotton, it was just like I just couldn't believe it was happening. I was staying with Clifford that night, and Clifford drives me to the club, and there's James getting. They had the shoe shine stand up front.
Right.
When you'd walk into the club, and he was getting his shoe shine, and so I went and sat next to him and got my shoe shine too. And Clifford Antone goes, "James, this is your guitar player, Rusty." He's like, "Nice to meet you," And this is back when he was still singing too. It's
Right.
before he had totally lost his voice. I was really nervous, and we get up to play, and we had George Raines and Sarah Brown so it was kind of naked, and I felt a little naked, no keys or other guitar. And anyway, I was really nervous, and I remember my knees kind of like shaking, and the first chord I hit on the first song, James just kind of, and he looks over at me, and he got a big smile on his face. And I thought, okay, this will be cool, And then he handed me a solo in that song, and he walks over to me and he goes, "Boy, you take me back to West Memphis."
Yeah.
And
that's the
that
ultimate
was just
compliment. Yeah.
I just thought, man, I could die and go to heaven now. That was
the
an
ultimate
amazing
compliment.
experience.
Yeah.
And then I sat in with him sometimes when he would come through town. And then I got to tour with him with you.
Did you?
Yeah,
that's
at
right.
least once.
Yeah,
At least
no, we
once,
did.
yeah.
I think we might have done
A couple times.
No, we did a
maybe.
couple because
Yeah.
we did at least one or two in 07. I can't remember if you were there or not.
I think I was.
I
Were
think
you?
you were
With
definitely. We
Curtis?
went to the Northwest with
Yeah,
those
I
guys.
did.
Yeah,
With
Curtis Salgado, yeah. So we did one in the winter and one in the fall.
Right.
I mean, to me, he's one of the greatest ever. He must have flipped
think
when
it
he heard you play Otis Spann.
Yeah, he's like piano player. You don't think he really never.
Yeah.
He's like,
It's like those Jamaican guys. They never
he's
know
like, piano
names.
player, he's like, "You take me back to Otis Spann," and I'm like, well,
What more of a compliment can
I always thought when Cotton would do that little lick where he goes wint fiddle-in, wint fiddle-in,
Yeah,
wint fiddle-in.
yeah,
I always
yeah.
thought he was copping Otis Spann's
might have been.
right hand, on
He
the
might
high
have
key
been.
stuff,
Yeah.
kind of like.
But Walter did that lick too, though.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
I think those guys were
where he
probably all
got it from.
bouncing
Yeah,
off of each
yeah,
other.
but definitely that sounds like a piano.
Yeah,
lick,
yeah. It was sad when he couldn't sing anymore because, I mean, even though you wouldn't classically think he's like the greatest singer, he sang. He was like a human jukebox. He
Yeah,
knew
he totally was.
He knew the
yeah.
lyrics to every song, and he
I was
just.
going to say Billy Boy.
I liked
always
his singing
talked-
a lot. Yeah.
Billy Boy always talked about how Cotton always knew the latest tunes,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter if it was soul, R&B, blues, whatever, rock and roll. He knew all.
He knew
the
so many
latest
songs. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Bob, about how you got the Elvin gig. I know you were playing with John Nemeth, as I recall, right
I
before.
was playing with John, and I think that I met Elvin on probably one of those blues cruises or something, and played with him a couple times, and even went over and recorded a record with him.
With him and John together.
Yeah, with him and John together, and then he had called me up later and asked if I could do a tour, but I was already on the road with John. I didn't want to cancel, and then a couple months later, I'm like, I think I would like the opportunity to play with this guy. So I called him up and got into his band,
Yeah.
and I've been with him ever since.
Yeah. And you guys started the Big Fun Trio, I guess, after he kind of let the band go, or how did that work?
He started doing the Big Fun Trio
As the band was
as
still
the band was
around,
going on.
right?
He did like maybe 1 or 2 gigs a year, and then he just decided he liked doing that better. He got tired of.
He downsized.
He downsized.
He downsized, and he probably wanted a change. I mean, that's the interesting thing about music is how, we all kind of go into this thing where we got to find new kind of outlets for music. You with reggae, or, you taking different gigs,
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to go in the direction that's speaking to them.
I was going to bring up a couple of the old guys that, you guys have had a chance to work with. I've had a chance to work with people like Willie Big Eye Smith is another one that to me was just a great guy to hang around. by the way, for folks that don't know, Willie Big Eye Smith was the drummer for Muddy Waters for, God, 30 years or something off and on. And then you had Pine Top was the piano player, Pine Top Perkins, and then Dave Myers was the guitar player for Little Walter originally and a member of the Aces. So you got to do a record on Dave on Blacktop, which was a great album.
Yeah.
I first met Dave through Randy Chortkoff when I was tapped to do a 10-day tour up and down the coast, and it was this insane review. Dave was playing bass, and Jimmy Rogers was one of the stars, Carrie Bell, Billy Boy Arnold, Andy Santana was there. Freddie Robinson did some shows with us.
Wow.
Tucker was on the whole thing.
Right.
And everybody got a chance to do a portion. It was a long night, 10 nights. And Dave and I didn't really hit it off well at first.
He was kind of like that.
And plus I was,
I
was probably kind of a punk too. And we just kind of bumped heads. And by the end of the 10 days, we were
thick as
we
thieves.
just we just became friends. And then I would stay with him when I'd go to Chicago and have some nights off with you sometimes.
Right,
I'd stay with him. There was one day where we had a day off and everybody went out except me and Dave stayed at Randy's house and we just hung out together. And there was, my guitar was laying there. Dave just picked it up and started playing and I was like, whoa, because it just like, it was like,
He was
he was in a cocoon. He just played exactly like he did with Little Walter.
Exactly like the 50s, yeah.
And then I don't know if I could take credit for it, but I think after that, he started playing guitar more and more. Folks in Chicago wanted him to make a solo record, and he had turned down a deal with Delmark, a deal with Earwig, maybe some others, I don't remember, but I called him up one day and I said, look, the reality is, these labels, they don't have $1 million to give us. I said, you can get a cash advance and, you can make some money off this, but we're not going to become millionaires off this. I said, you need to make a record before you're 6 feet in the ground, Dave. I literally told that to him. And I guess he took it to heart. And then we took him to Blacktop. I wound up being the producer. It was frustrating for me because as wanted to be the producer, I wanted to make this just stone Chicago ensemble record where the guitars and the harp and piano were all having that conversation like they did back. And Dave wanted to do like a bunch of Fats Domino songs, and I mean great material.
Great songs, but
great
not really representative.
Wasn't really what I wanted to do, and so that record, to me, like about half of it has the vision that I was hearing Dave in.
Right.
I think to me the highlight of that record is, I mean, I haven't heard it in years, but what I always remember the highlight being "Elevate Me Mama" was the one that was like the.
There was also an instrumental I remember that he played that was really cool.
Yeah.
guitar instrument,
Legs out or legs something. It's some weird title.
It's great. Yeah.
But there's like at least another album's worth, if not 2 albums worth of material.
Wow.
So there's so much stuff with that Chicago sound that never saw the light of day.
Bad.
So.
The other guy I want to talk about a little bit of the harmonica players is Billy Boy, because both you guys have done a lot of stuff. A lot of different tours and gigs and
He was part of that tour with Jimmy Rogers.
how he was kind of dressed like a truant officer at the time.
Well, he was a truancy officer, but he reminded me of like my history teacher. He had a tweed coat with leather elbow patches, and it was before he got signed to Alligator and kind of got his career resumed, relaunched, and but he still sounded great. He still. He still had the voice, and he still had that kind of Sonny Boy One stuff. And we did all
classic
VJ all his classic VJ sides. I Was Fooled, and of course I Wish You Would, and that tour was actually a Little Walter tour tribute.
Right,
the whole tour was a tribute to Little Walter. So he would do You're So Fine.
Right.
And, my mom really liked Billy Boy's records a lot, and we used to around the house we used to play that VJ stuff a lot. So to just even get to meet the guy was just, I couldn't believe it. First time he'd ever played in California.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was always really excited that if I had any opportunity to get the chance to play with him, And but he was always really nice, and he's really, really smart and knows still all the history.
He loves both of you
stuff,
guys. I mean, he really loves playing with both of you guys. I mean,
we have a good connection with Billy Boy. He's a good cat,
Right. And he has a great new book out. He's 86 now.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he'll be 87 if I hire him in 2023. And I know he is starting to consider gigs again, so I'm looking at maybe having him on that, which would be awesome.
God, it's amazing. He's amazing, man.
He's very ageless. He's kind of the picture of Dorian Gray.
He's ageless, and he fears no man, only mountain lions.
The best part was when he said that, and then there was an attack like a week later
we were
when he
teasing
got
him.
home.
We were giving him a hard time about his fear of mountain lions. And
The other thing was when he gets stuck in the seatbelt in my van. Hey, Mark, help me out of here.
Yeah. He's one of a kind, though,
He's
man.
great.
I mean, when he first came on the scene in recording in Chicago, I mean, nobody sounded like that.
Yeah.
He really had a unique thing, man.
Yeah, well, to me, him and Lil Walter had a very similar thing in the sense of that they both sounded very youthful.
Well,
Because
of
they were
course,
so
yeah.
young.
Yeah,
They
Junior
both
Wells,
had this,
too.
They really had, but they really had like almost a sound that translated to rock and roll.
Oh,
And
I
that's
see
why I
what, I
think
see what
those
you
guys,
mean, yeah.
those guys ended up on a
Yeah.
lot of the package tours because of that, I think.
Yeah.
And then the last guy I want to talk about, Luther Tucker, who was
Okay.
a huge influence on you and definitely an
Yeah,
influence
on
on
both of
Doug
us.
as
Yeah.
well.
Talk first about
Well,
it.
you know, I always wanted to. When I loved blues, when I got into Little Walter, I was taken by the guitar playing behind them, you know, and I wanted to learn how to play like that. So I took lessons with Rusty, and of course he learned from Luther Tucker.
Right.
And so Rusty was able to show me all this stuff that I couldn't really figure out, you know. But Rusty really is the guy that knew him so well, you know.
Right.
It was kind of a relatively short time that I knew him, and in hindsight, it's weird. I met him, the first time I saw him was, he came through the West Coast on an Antone's Blues Review with Jimmy Rogers, Buddy Guy, Pine Top, Willie and Fuzz, Kim was there, Tucker, Mel Brown. I mean, it was just Angela Straley when she had that great band we were talking about earlier,
Right.
with Denny Freeman and George Raines and all that. Just a killer package. And I was 17. I wasn't even old enough to get in. They played the Catalyst in Santa Cruz.
Right.
And somehow my mom and then this guy Ben, who was the first guy to teach me to play guitar, he played keyboards with Loggins and Messina, and he
Oh,
toured
yeah,
with Etta
yeah, yeah.
James. Really fantastic musician. Somehow they got me in there. I don't know how it happened, but I got in there. So there's me and my mom and Ben up on the big balcony up there at the and the place was just a sea of people. It was completely packed. It's back when people actually valued live music. And the guy I really wanted to see was Jimmy Rogers and probably Buddy Guy too at the time. It was before Buddy really exploded. But Tucker was when Cotton was there too, and Tucker played a set with Jimmy Rogers and he did a set with Cotton, and it was just like, I mean, I just couldn't. It was unbelievable. I wasn't even really that tuned into him at that point through records even. I mean, I knew his name. And I knew about him a little bit, and knew he was a guy that was there, but I hadn't really, looked into him, and it changed my life. And about a year later, maybe in '88, Bill Campbell introduced us, and so I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm going to come see you guys," and he goes, "Oh, I'll put you on the list and everything." And I had my gear in my trunk because I had done a private party gig that afternoon, and then I went straight to the gig, and so Tucker plays a set, and I'm just in heaven watching him do, his thing, just by himself, There we are at Zelda's, and he does a set, and on the break, we're outside getting some air, and the doorman goes, "Hey, Rusty, are you," he knew me because I played there too, local. And he goes, "Hey, are you playing tonight?" And I go, "Are you kidding me? No way, man, I'm here to see this guy. This guy's my hero, and Tucker goes, "He's playing with us." And I'm like, and he goes, "You got your axe with you?" And I go, "Actually, I do." I go, "I did a private party gig today." And then he looks back at the door guy and he goes, "He playing with us." And so I'm like going, "Oh my God." So he says, "Go set your gear up and I'll call you up on the next set, So he's up there, he's playing, and like he's getting the mic and he's going, "We have a celebrity in the house tonight." and I'm just sitting there,
Where is he?
My knees are shaking, man, and so I got up and played with him, and I never forget, we did a up tempo swing and shuffle thing, and when he handed me a solo, I played that.
Coach's Better
Yeah,
Days.
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Right.
all I could do was really play like him at that point, and he
Right.
just looked over and he just got this big grin, and
Oh, I bet.
and that started. That was the beginning of our friendship. You know, we wound up going on the road together a little bit. We did gigs together with icons. You know, the first time I played with Snooky Pryor, you were there.
Right.
Me and Tucker
Yeah,
were the
that was
guitar
a
players.
great gig.
I mean, I had just amazing moments with him, but
But didn't he, like, you know, through Tucker you got to like shake hands with like Robert Jr. Lockwood and meet all kinds of guys like Lewis Myers and you know, 'cause he kind of introduced you
Tucker
as-
introduced me to Lewis Myers. That was a really special night. I actually met Lockwood through June.
Oh,
But
okay.
June, when Robert found out that I was, you know, June was like, you know, he was,
Right.
he goes, Tucker kind of mentored him when he was younger, and he goes,
Right.
and so whenever Lockwood would see me after that, he'd go, I remember you Tucker's boy, you know, you Tucker's little boy, you know. But it, you know, I met Tucker and
Interesting because of the fact that
Lockwood
Robert Jr.
taught Tucker.
did that to Tucker.
Yeah, he taught Tucker,
So
yeah.
Tucker kind of did
he
that
was
with
he was
you.
fond of Tucker, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I met Tucker in '88, and he died in '93. So it was
Wow.
a relatively short time
Yeah.
that I knew him. You know, as far as him showing me things, people blow that up bigger than it is, because really, Tucker didn't want to even have a guitar in his hands unless he was on a gig.
Right.
So I would literally pull his guitar out and strap it on him and get him cornered. I'd get him in a corner, and I'd be like, "What was that thing you were doing last night?" You know, and I'd try to play it. And he'd go, "Oh, that's this," you know. And so he would show me things, but it
Right.
wasn't like
And he
would-
turned you on to a lot of people too.
Well,
Tiny Grimes. And
he
people
turned me
like
on to Tiny Grimes.
Right.
But this is all before I met Junior Watson, who
Right.
Junior was obviously when he came into my life, he opened all kinds of doors of
Right.
finding out about different people, and
he worked with Tucker. a lot.
and he worked with
Yep.
Tucker too back in
Yep.
the '70s with
Sure
Gary
did.
Smith, and
Yep.
and Tucker told me he had a '78 when he was a teenager by Tiny Grimes, was Rockin' the Blues Away, which is a great Tiny Grimes instrumental, and Tucker did a version of that live.
Huh.
You surely saw it.
Could
you
be.
almost wouldn't recognize
You know,
it.
I wasn't really hip to Tiny Grimes when I met.
Well,
Tucker.
he played this instrumental, and he
Yeah.
totally played it in his
Yeah.
style, of course. But
Right.
the other guy that he turned me on to was, because I was trying to find out where did this guy's sound come from, you know. Who else besides Robert Jr.? And he goes, a cat named Lee Jackson.
Wow.
And I didn't even know who Lee Jackson was,
Yeah.
and I go,
Yeah.
who's that? And he goes, oh, if you ever find a record called Fishing in My Pond, I suggest you pick it up, you know. And then like
Yeah.
a week or two later, I'm at Village Music in Mill Valley, and there's
Right.
Fishing in My Pond by Lee Jackson. It was all,
Yeah.
it was so mystical. Everything was
Yeah.
just all falling into place and
Yeah.
coming
And he
together.
was
and
very Robert Jr. kind of style too, in a way.
Lee Jackson?
Yeah.
Well, I think all
A little
those
bit,
guys, I think
yeah.
Robert Jr. was kind of the godfather, don't you? I
Yeah.
think everybody was looking at him
Oh, yeah.
probably in some
Yeah.
sense, you know, for...
Everybody from Joe Willie Wilkins to
Yeah, I think Robert
Right,
Jr.
that's right.
affected everybody.
B.B. King.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. To
totally,
BB, he
yeah.
gave BB lessons apparently.
Yeah,
Robert
yeah.
Jr.
Now Joe Willie is another guy. Actually, the only guy I've ever heard play what sounds like Joe Willie to me is my friend Bob. I mean, he plays that
I know
style.
he does.
Because
I know he
usually
does. Yeah.
us as guitar players, when we play behind somebody doing Sonny Boy, we jump on Robert Lockwood.
Right.
He goes to Joe Willie, and it's great, man.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, I agree.
I don't get a chance to play like that too often.
Well, you know,
it's so
you're on
specific,
the Blues Harmonica Blowout album. You play that stuff behind Magic Dick. I remember.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, when we did
Yeah,
that.
because he would do Pontiac blues, and
Because
you
he
would
did
do.
Pontiac Blues, and you were doing the solo on it.
You know who really loved Joe Willie too was Jimmy Rogers.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
crazy about Joe
Yeah.
Willie Wilkins. Yeah.
Okay, so the last guy we want to talk about here is Jimmy Rogers, because he was such a huge part of, I know, your history, and I'm sure your history as well. And I know for myself, he was really the first idol that I had in Chicago blues. Besides Little Walter and Muddy, it was like, to me, that those three were the triumvirate of Chess Records, the really great sound that those guys had together between the guitars and the harmonica all melding together.
Yeah, he's really cool because he's like he played in Muddy Waters band, but he has that sound. He's a singer guitar player who has a very harmonica heavy
Yes.
guy. Must be would influence all the West Coast people in California as they call
Seems
it.
like
today,
it,
you
yeah.
know.
Seems
But
like
Rusty, introduced me to him one time. I know you at Biscuits and Blues. I got to meet him one time.
okay.
Right.
I never got to play with him, but you did a couple of tours with him.
I did, yeah. And,
Yeah, you toured with him with Randy, and then we
and
did
then
the
with
tour
you,
together.
and then I used
Right.
to sit in with him when he'd come through town. And
Right,
then,
and he was a huge fan of yours. I mean, it was so funny to watch because Rusty would be playing a solo, and you could see just Jimmy going, you know.
we
like-
were close. We were
You guys,
we had a
he
closeness.
obviously,
Yeah.
he obviously really loved what you
We had
did
a
because you were
closeness,
so
yeah.
much out of his style.
I really
You
wished I could go back and play with him now. Not saying that I've mastered anything, but I just feel like I have a better understanding of the music. I think what he liked was just the spirit that I loved this stuff. Looking back on it, I don't think I played so well behind him as well as I think I could now. But it was always a great learning experience, and then the way he played is the
Yeah.
foundation for the way me and Bob play together.
Right,
Because
exactly.
when Bob and I lived together in that house where we had done that first Blacktop record, we used to talk about how most guys would be like on a gig, say, okay, I'll play top and you play bottom, but
Right.
me and Bob were like, man, these guys, it's not
Very
it's not
interwoven.
It's not as easy as that. It's
Right.
they're weaving around each other. Muddy's on the top here, and then sometimes he goes to the bottom, and
Right.
vice versa. And so we listened to that, and I think we developed our own take on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially
you know.
when you listen to like a shuffle. If you could imagine Jimmy Rogers playing the guitar, he's picking some high strings too.
Totally.
Right.
And Dave and Lewis,
Same thing.
I think that was the blueprint, was Muddy and Jimmy Rogers for them doing that.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
that whole thing is, you
And
don't
then
really hear.
Tucker and Robert had a different almost.
They
kind
had a
of thing.
different vibe, and
Yeah.
we jumped on board on that. The only guys that I've seen, I'm sure there's other guys that can do it, but the only guys I ever saw do the two guitar snaking around each other like me and Bob love to do was one night, you were there, we saw Johnny Dyer play at the Sunset Social
Oh
Club
God, yes.
with Rick
yes.
Holmstrom and
Oh,
Chris.
yeah.
I don't remember
That was-
Chris's last
Chris's,
name, but
I'm blanking on it now.
but those guys
yeah.
had an amazing
Yeah.
guitar thing going that night.
They
it was,
sure
it was
did.
crazy,
Oh, yeah,
crazy
yeah,
good.
Sure
yeah.
did. Sure
Yeah, I remember
did.
they did Can't Hold Out Much Longer.
Oh,
It was like,
perfect.
wow.
That's
you know?
a
Yeah.
great example of like
Muddy and Jimmy.
Mitty. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
See that's really what got me into both guitar and harmonica was that recording. Can't Hold Out Much Longer by Little Walter. The way that the guitars locked in together and interwove with the harmonica, to me that's like some of the most spectacular
yeah, that's
stuff ever.
what got
Well, when
me
he and I lived together, we both had our record collections in that house, and it was a great time period of turning each other onto music, and I learned a lot from Bob during that time, and it was an exciting time, man, because we were young, and it was
and
just
back
like,
then it was like you go play a club and it's got a mix of young, old people.
Right,
People
right.
wanted to go see live
That's
music.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a much different
It was
time.
different.
I think it's weird. It's only 20 years ago, but
Yeah, I
it
know.
seems like
it feels like a
seems
lifetime ago in terms
Things
of
are so different now, yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
amazing. But I remember so many nights, on the blowouts with you guys, where I would just sit back and you'd be backing up Harmon or Cotton or somebody else, and I'd just be going, "Wow,
Harmon was so.
these guys really
Harmon was
have
easily
that simpatico."
Harmon was easily pleased because if I would just, I'm sure it was the same with you. If I would just hit a ninth chord,
Yeah.
he'd just go, he'd go, yeah, Willie Johnson, play those Willie, and all you're
Right.
doing is hitting ninth chords and sliding
Right.
them around, and he just thought that was the,
Well, it's
the
so
best
rare.
thing,
It's so rare. I
Well,
mean,
and it's so
in
cool
blues.
because those kind of things. Those are some of the first things that we probably first played when we were trying to figure out how to play blues was taking a piece of a ninth chord and sliding it like those records. And,
Oh, yeah.
And we still, those things are still
They're still
the
there,
foundation of
yeah.
what we do, and it's like they're simple, but they're deceptively simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like those things are you can't get away from that. That's the sound.
That's if you listen to like Jimmy Reed. It sounds deceptively simple, but it's
Right.
really hard to play.
That's right.
Harmonica, guitar, everything.
There's
It's
another
really
great
hard
two
to play.
guitar
Yep.
team, right?
Another
There's Jimmy
yeah,
Reed and Eddie
Jimmy
Taylor.
Reed and
which
Eddie
are,
Taylor, absolutely.
But all that, even all the high stuff that Jimmy Reed plays, it's like
Yeah.
specific and on purpose.
yeah.
It's like, and it's not easy.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Well, that's the truth about
It's
all
not
blues.
easy, and
All
the
that
guitars are
blues.
not easy. They're
What I
real
think,
specific.
one thing I think about often, I think it's so odd about people like Bob and myself is when a kid, usually gets into blues, they're gonna go to Albert King or someone that's really the guitar is in your face.
Yeah,
and
string
and I don't know, it's so weird. As kids, I guess we both gravitated towards more sidemen kind of sound, like the underdog guys, you know. And I don't know, just something about the subtlety.
I like the song, you know. Like
song
the
is
song maybe.
Song is king, yeah.
The song and and of course I love Albert King and Freddie King.
Yeah,
and all those guys.
no, there's no.
It's great. It's fantastic, but it's like.
It's been done to death.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
I mean,
you know, harmonicas.
These days.
I guess Little Walter's been done to death too.
Sure,
but the
it has,
difference
absolutely,
is the difference is that you guys have such a lock on it compared to most of the musicians that I've heard.
the funny thing is, I don't even think we even play it like the records anymore. I think we've
but
kind of
you
we've
guys
morphed
just have
into
a
our
knack
own.
for doing it. Yeah.
We've morphed into our own version of it, which is
Right.
it's close enough to foot the bill. You know, like
I mean, and if we were to play it the same way every time, it would be
It'd be
terrible.
boring.
those guys
Yeah.
never played
No,
the
they
same way
never
twice.
did.
So it's like when
No.
guys copy the records. That's, hey, guitar players out there, don't copy the records.
Right.
You know.
You know, the other thing I was gonna say, I remember one time we were playing with Rod Piazza, and he was knocked out with the fact that you guys kind of were doing this more trebly tone on the guitars. Remember that?
We had, I think,
Yeah.
I almost think we consciously talked about that. We were like, you know what, Rod's coming. I've been seeing Rod for years.
Right.
I'm a fan. But when you see him with the Flyers, it always had that little Walter vintage sound. And I said, let's play like when Rod would have played in the 60s in ghetto clubs with Marshall Hooks and these guys. And so we just we had our super reverbs and we just went for brittle, trebly piercing tone.
And he loved it.
And he loved it.
He loved it,
The
yeah.
next day he was like, I remember we were at the sound check at Yoshi's and he goes, man, you and your partner Bob just he was really knocked out. And it was kind of, I don't know, it kind of surprised me, but then again it didn't, because I figured it would kind of take him back to a time, you know.
Right.
It was just different. It was a different approach, and it was kind of like, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, when they hear something that's not the typical thing that, you know.
Well, Rusty and I always kind of hate cookie cutter guitar players.
Exactly. And that's what
any
it
kind of
is.
genre
I agree. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah,
way.
yeah.
It took me a long time to get to that point, but after years of doing this, I have really gotten to the point where it's like, you have to do something that's going to be out of the box for me.
Yeah.
To
I mean, you
impress
don't
me.
hear guys talk about Sammy Lawhorn in the same breath as Albert King and Freddie King and all that. And a guy like him, like,
Or Eddie Taylor.
but I mean, like a guy just like Sammy Lawhorn's another guy that he just sounds so unique.
Right.
And I don't know. I always like to hear something different, you know. And
Oh,
Jody
yeah.
Williams.
Jody Williams,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
There's
Matt
so many,
Murphy,
there's so
there's
many
a whole
great
bunch of
guys,
them.
you know. It's
Yeah.
so much inspiration out there, you know.
Hi, I'm Mark Hummel. I hope you're enjoying the Harmonica Party and the other content that we post on our channel. Now you can become part of the show for the price of a cheap cup of coffee. For $3 a month, you can help bring the blues and the stories to you.